to my kitchen for another Bereishit Bites. My name is Rabbi Finn, and every week I'm going to share with you a short idea and a recipe to celebrate the week's Torah portion. This week is Passata Noach, the story of Noah. But to understand the story of Noah, we need to actually go back a little bit to the end of last week's portion, the end of the story of Bereishit. Because having created the world 10 generations later, God surveys creation, realizes, you know what? It's actually not quite worked out exactly as planned. Humanity were being horrible. Human beings were being horrible to one another. The world had descended into chaos. And therefore God decides to press the reset button. But instead of destroying the entirety of the world and the entirety of humanity along with it, as we are told at the beginning of this week's portion, Noach ish Sadiq, there was one righteous man and his name was Noah. So God goes to Noah and tells Noah to build an ark. Now Noah had many qualities, but I think building was probably not one of them. Why? Because it takes him over 100 years to actually build the thing. For 100 years, Noach is building away, getting the ark ready, and then eventually the flood comes, and Noah gathers his family and gathers a bunch of animals into the ark, and it rains for 40 days and 40 nights. But in truth, actually Noah was stuck on the ark for over 200 days because it took that long for the water to recede. Now, if you thought isolation was bad, imagine being stuck in an ark with your family, with a whole bunch of wild animals for 200 plus days. Nowhere to go, nowhere to exercise. I have no idea what it would have been like. Anyway, the world is saved, Noah is saved, and through Noah and his children, humanity is reborn and starts to flourish again. The portion ends with the story of the Tower of Babel, which is a fascinating story, and I would encourage you to read it. It's only 11 pasukim, 11 verses long. The entirety of humanity seems to get together for a communal endeavor, but for some reason God looks at it and is not happy. God is not pleased with it, and so God goes down to the project and mubabels, mixes up everybody's language, and there we have the creation of different languages. But also with different languages comes diversity of thought, something which is so important for the success of humanity. And that is how the portion of Noah ends. Now, to celebrate this amazing parsha, I've got the perfect recipe. It is chicken and olives, not a chicken marbella, although that would also be really quite appropriate for many reasons, but this is a chicken and olive recipe. And if you're wondering, Rabbi, what on earth has chicken and olives got to do with the portion of Noach? Well, let me explain. Let's start with the olives. When Noah wanted to know whether or not it was safe to leave the ark, he first sends out a raven, but the raven is pretty useless and just goes round and round and round and round and round and round, and so we forget about the raven. He then sends out a dove. The dove goes for a long flight but can't find anywhere to rest, so comes back to the ark. 7 days later, Noah sends the dove out again. This time though, the dove comes back with a olive branch in its beak. Finally, 7 days later, Noah sends the dove out, and the dove never returns, presumably because it has found somewhere to build its own nest. Noah then realizes that it is safe to leave the ark, that the ground below the ark is dry. And so, to celebrate the dove and the olive branch, we are going to have olives in our dish. But why am I doing chicken? Well, because something momentous happens in this week's portion. Something changes for humanity that was not in existence in Parshat Bereishit. And that is, humanity is given the permission to eat meat, to eat birds, to eat chicken. If you don't believe me, let's have a look. In Parshat Bereishit, Adam is given a very simple instruction. And God said, "Behold, I have given you every seed-bearing herb which upon the surface of the entire earth, and every tree that has seed-bearing fruit, it will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and to all the fowl of the heavens, and to everything that moves upon the earth, in which there is a living spirit, every green herb to eat." And so it was. Humanity has the same diet as all the other animals. Everybody is a herbivore. That changes though after the flood, where God turns around to Noah and says as follows: "Every moving thing that lives shall be yours to eat. Like the green vegetation, I have given you everything." Suddenly, Noah and his children and the rest of humanity are allowed to eat meat. And the question has to be asked, why? What changes between Bereishit and Parshat Noach? What happens before the flood and after the flood? And different answers are given. One answer is that after the flood, the vegetation wasn't as nourishing as it was pre-flood, and therefore humans needed that extra vitamins that came and the extra energy that came from eating animals. Another answer given, which is quite a logical one in a way, is that pre the flood, there was a bit more parity between the humans and the animals. After the flood, the animals were only alive because Noah had saved them, and therefore Noah had the ability to actually also be allowed to eat them as well. Something to think about, but because of this momentous moment, I've decided to celebrate it by creating a chicken dish with olives. So let's get ready to cook chicken and olives to celebrate Passata Noach. Okay, so we are making chicken and olives to celebrate Passata Noach. This is the perfect dish for this time of year. As the nights get longer, as the days get colder, this is a beautiful, warming, moist chicken dish. It is also perfect for a Friday night because you can leave it in the oven or on the hot plate and it's not going to go dry. So to make this dish, you're going to need a chicken, ideally cut in 8 or cut in 6. You don't want a whole chicken for this dish. You would like 500 grams of passata. It doesn't really matter what quality of passata as long as it's there. Have it. You're going to need some paprika. You're going to need some black pepper. You're going to need a bay leaf. You're going to need some garlic granules. Onto the vegetables, you are going to want to have 1 or 2 peppers. I've gone for orange and yellow. You're going to want to have some onion. And finally, you're going to want to have the olives. I'm going for a mixture of green and black olives because I love both. They both have a slightly different flavour. They both bring something to the dish. As I say, it is a super easy dish, so let's get ready to cook together this chicken and olive dish. What you want to start off with is by slicing 2 onions. Just slice them into half moons, and once you've sliced your onions, simply pour them over or sprinkle them over your chicken pieces, like so. Once you've sliced your onions, now move on to your pepper. Again, it can be quite rough and ready this. I like to just do it as strips of pepper so that you're going to get a little bit of pepper. Pepper, when it cooks with tomato, does something absolutely amazing. It goes sweet, it goes savoury. I just find the little bits of pepper, the little bits of onion complement the olives, which in truth are the star of this dish. So I've got my slices of pepper, my slices of onion. I'm just going to do the orange pepper as well as the yellow pepper in here as well. Again, this is a ridiculously easy dish which is going to take 4 minutes to put together once you've got all the ingredients cut up. I've got my chicken, I've got my peppers, I've got my onion in here. Now I want to prepare my sauce. So you need to get your passata. Open the passata and you want to pour it into a bowl. The reason you want to pour it into a bowl is because you're going to be mixing in the spices. So all of the passata into a bowl. Should have gone for a bigger bowl, doesn't matter. And into here you want to add a good tablespoon of paprika. If you want to use smoked paprika, maybe use half a teaspoon as well as your tablespoon of real paprika as well. Tablespoon of paprika. You want to do about half a teaspoon of salt. So 1 tablespoon of paprika, half a teaspoon of salt. And it can be a generous half a teaspoon of salt. You want to put in here a good few grinds of fresh pepper. So I'm going to do about 5 grinds of pepper. Maybe even 6 grinds of pepper. You want to do a teaspoon of garlic granules. And finally, you want a bay leaf, but I'm going to just pop the bay leaf on top of the chicken. 1 big bay leaf. If you've not got big bay leaves, just use 2 bay leaves as well. Give your tomato mix a stir because you want to get the spices mixed in with the tomato passata. Told you, this is the world's easiest chicken recipe. Once you've given it a stir, simple, you're going to laugh. Just pour it or spoon it over your chicken. All over, cover all the chicken with it. How easy is that? Finally, because it is chicken and olives, get your olives and just sprinkle them again all over the chicken. You might want to just push the sauce around to make sure every bit of chicken is covered. And this is what it's going to look like. How easy was that? So to recap, there's onion in there, there's pepper in there, there is some tomato sauce, and into the tomato sauce there is 500 grams of passata, 1 tablespoon of paprika, 1 teaspoon of garlic granules, half a teaspoon of salt, although if you want it a bit more salty, you can always make that 1 teaspoon of salt, good 5-6 grams of pepper, and a couple of bay leaves, and then finally add the olives. Now, what you want to do is tightly wrap your chicken with some thin foil. And once you've done that, you want to place it into a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius for, depending on how big your chicken is, 45 minutes or an hour. If it's a super big chicken, over 2.5 kilograms, I would then go for an hour and 15. And then take the silver foil and let it cook for about 10 minutes to reduce down the sauce a little bit further. Obviously test the chicken as you're going to make sure it's cooked and not getting overcooked, but this is quite a difficult chicken to overcook because there's so much liquid in there, it's going to stay quite moist. So, into my oven. And I will see you when it's cooked. So my chicken's been in the oven for about an hour. After 45 minutes, I took the silver foil off and I gave it another 15 minutes so that it could start to caramelize on top. Let's have a look. This looks really, really yummy. I'm getting the most amazing smell. Let me just show the camera. You can see the olives, the tomato, the peppers, and the chicken. This is going to be a beautiful dish. So, here you've got it, my chicken with olives to celebrate Passata Noach. I like to serve this with some really simple rice, or even better still, some sourdough, which you can dip into the beautiful tomato sauce. I'm going to go enjoy some. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.